Hello, welcome to Tea with Mali. Today we have Claudia Olivos. She's here to share her passions around art and helping art really change a community, change children, change adults, change lives, allowing art to heal and allowing creative expression to really help you move forward in your life wherever you are. Thank you for being here, Claudia.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me how you got started yourself as an artist.
Well, I think I've been an artist ever since I can remember. I started drawing, well, I have my drawing book from before I could even walk. So when I was about one and a half, I was drawing. Or it must have been earlier than that, because of course we walk when we're one. So for a long time, and my father was an artist, and it was just natural. It was what I was going to become.
What kind of artist was he?
He was a painter.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what form of art do you practice?
I'm also a painter.
Okay. And do you have a particular style or a particular theme that you focus on? What motivates and inspires you to do the art that you do?
I guess more than anything, I'm focused on the figurative. And so even if it's an abstract form, my figures still come through. And my style, it has been called surrealist or magic realist and expressionistic. I'm not really sure, what to title it, but it's just, it is very obvious that it's my style when you look at it. And in the last 3 years, I think, after the market collapsed, my style changed a little bit, and I'm just now starting to go back to what my heart really calls for.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So have you always been a professional artist, or did you have to kind of transition into a professional artist? I mean, you've been an artist your whole life. You basically feel like it came with you, this gift. Mm-hmm. Did you ever have to go to work, like corporate, or did you always pursue this as a profession, as a career?
No, I did have, my father, before he passed away when I was 17. And we talked about being an artist, and he was a diplomat. And so he had gone to France, and he had been in Spain also studying art and painting. Then he moved back to our native Chile, and he studied law and sociology, and he became a diplomat for the OAS, which is how I ended up in the US. Okay. And then from there he went to the UN. So he always continued to paint, but he wasn't an exhibiting artist. He was writing about art in several European publications and here in D.C. too. But I remember him telling me, if you want to be an artist, you have to know that you'll knock on many, many doors and they'll all be closed in your face. And he said, I'm not sure because you're so sensitive. It makes me want to cry now telling you that. And I am, pretty sensitive. I think a lot of artists, we are. And he said, I'm not sure you can put up with that. So if you agree to first get a degree in something else, then I will support you in your degree for art. And he passed away during my first semester in college. I had applied to Pratt and I was going to go live with him in Manhattan. But I decided to honor his request, and I studied psychology. And I wasn't very sure about my talent in art, so I took a lot of electives. And I started taking electives in schools that I wasn't even attending. So I was going to George Mason, and I took my art electives at VCU, Mary Washington, just because I was unsure. And a professor at Mary Washington, and at that time I was working as a mental health counselor. I started doing my internship. I was living in Fredericksburg at the time, and there were not a lot of Spanish speakers. So they hired me even though I was still in college. So I worked as a counselor, and at Mary Washington College I had a professor who, when he saw my pieces, he said, I'm not going to cuss on here, but he said, what the bleep? What the bleep are you doing? Studying psychology, you're so gifted. And that changed. It changed my life. Yeah, I've talked to him. I've thanked him. I was able to see him this summer. I exhibited at Mary Washington, and I saw him, and I thanked him. So that was huge for me. And I joined a cooperative in Fredericksburg. So like a gallery where everyone, chips in time and we all get to hang our work. I was the youngest one there. I think I was about 19 at the time. And that's how I started selling my work. So, just kind of one foot in, not necessarily the corporate world, but definitely, a paycheck, and then the other foot in the arts.
And I know that you have an international appeal, and your goal is to go more beyond the U.S. How much of your cultural heritage and background comes into play with your art?
I think in the past, when I was living in Fredericksburg, it came into play very obviously in my work. And probably that's because I married very young. I married when I was 17, right after my father died. And I married a gringo. And I was quite new in the U.S. too, because I hadn't been here that many years. And we moved to Fredericksburg, where there were not a lot of Latinos or anything like we have here in the D.C. area. So I think maybe then I was more obviously reaching for my own culture. Of course, I didn't see it at the time. I see it now when I look back. And I think now my culture is more represented in perhaps the style, the magic realism, the storytelling that we're, that Latinos are known for, having much more storytelling.
The stories that you tell, whether it's at that moment that we're sharing when you first came here and you're so young, and and I'm only imagining what you were experiencing, because when I lost my father, my whole world crumbled. Mm-hmm. And you were 17. I was a bit older when that happened, but it was still a shock to the system. I had such a quick time to know that he was here, he was sick, and in 3 weeks he was gone. But at 17, your life is so full ahead of you, and you have this experience of deep loss. How do you come here to the U.S., get married, decide that art is going to eventually be your thing? How do you cope with that? Did your art help you with that? Did you find refuge in community?
Not in community, definitely in art. I mean, and I definitely have always felt my dad with my art. But honestly, when my dad died, I mean, I married because he died. It was something that my mom made me do, but that's a long story. So I didn't paint for about a year after he died. I wrote. So I have a lot of poetry that I've written and a lot of stories that I've written that came from a place of pain. And once the painting started, I remember that it was my first abstract ever, and it was my first oil painting ever. And it was a painting of, it was all blues and greens, and then this kind of oranges and reds coming on. And it was, sort of melting this wall that had happened, this, like, when you lose somebody.
So let's fast forward. You're here in the U.S., you're in a new place where you don't really feel connected to at least something that you've been so accustomed to, Spanish speakers, culturally having even foods and things like that aren't accessible anymore. As you dove more into your work as an artist, how did you get inspiration? Where did you go to continue getting inspiration for your work? Was it internal? Was it external?
I'm sure it's a combination of both. There's so much inspiration that we find just from the people that we share our lives with, and actually that's something that I aim to hopefully do for others, so that when people can see that I'm following my bliss, my excitement, and my heart, hopefully other people will be encouraged to do the same. And so, from healing from my father's loss and all kinds of things, because life's not easy, and I have looked at those stories, and I've looked at other people in my community, or now that we have the internet, it's so easy to just Google whatever it is that we're going through and find inspiration through other people that have gone through us, or maybe are struggling with it too and are finding different ways to cope. And definitely art is one way to do that, you know. And so I guess the best sort of example that I can give is someone once told me, and it was kind of recently actually, in the last couple of years, that said, you know, you remind me of Frida Kahlo. And I said, you know, how? Because my paintings are so different, and, you know, and hers are pretty intense, you know, very bloody and a lot of suffering. And I'm told that mine, and I see that mine are not like that. They're much more peaceful and flowing with life, yeah, and optimistic. And he said to me, well, she painted her reality, her outside reality, and I can see you paint your inner reality. And I thought, wow, yeah, wow. That's, so even though all kinds of things can occur, you know, to us, to our external being, that internal, our heart, our soulfulness, our basis of everything, which is, and where we're all tied together into one, it just comes out in the art.
Well, now you have a new life, and you have a new love, and you actually, he's an artist as well, and you spend a lot of time with him in the studio. You guys have a studio together. How does that work? You know, having someone to share a space with, I'm sure it's beautiful, but it's also challenging. How does that chemistry work for you as being a couple and sharing the space and both being artists and amazing artists in your own right, you know, unique styles in your own right?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we do definitely have very unique styles, very different one from the other. People ask all the time. People are very curious about that. It's actually not a challenge. We've never found it a challenge to work together. Maybe, you know, he could stay up until 6 a.m. painting, and I'm kind of ready to go to bed at 3. So that's the only challenge, is the difference in time and how much he can stay up longer and sleep in later than I can. But we work well together, and we complement one another. We've done some collaborations too, where he does a background of a painting because he works with encaustics, and I find within it a form, a figure, and I'll paint that in oils.
Right, I've seen some of that work. It's amazing.
Thank
because
you.
you do see the unique blends. You know that there's more than one artist that's touched the paintings that you guys work on together.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about your studio. I mean, how do people access it? What types of things happen in the studio? Because it really is dynamic. I've been there several times. You've had gatherings, you've had socials, you've had trainings, you've had workshops. I mean, you have educational forums. It's a very sacred space for you, but when people come, because of all of the art, I feel, especially during your holiday parties, you know, we come and there's just so many options, and wherever we are in our lives, you know, you find basically a mirror. And because you have, it's figurative, right? You have these figures, and it's almost like looking like, okay, that's where I'm at. She's me. And I actually bought a piece recently, and basically it was talking about the quote that you wrote on that piece was called, she learned to find her voice. And that's exactly what I've been able to do over the past few years. And as soon as I saw it, I said, she's mine. And I contacted you right away and said, please, she's mine. I'm sure I'm not the only person who experiences that going into your studio. So what happens in the studio?
Well, besides this painting, we do spend a lot of time reaching out to the community, and we work with children and adults. So we do workshops and classes for both. We've done a few workshops too where we implement, I have a certification or certificate in art therapy. And so we do some healing through art. And then we reach out. For example, we had past summer, we had a group of foster kids from D.C. visit us in the studio, and we did a workshop for them.
Was that Best Kids? Or did you have several, didn't you?
I can't remember. We've had 2. I can't remember. You know, people contact us, and we donate our time. It's a wonderful way to reach out and to give back to the community. So, and working with children, and now recently, the last 2 years, is where I've started working with women. So that I do that on my own, and then working with children. Obviously, I do that with Sergio, and it's really helpful too to have a male, because a lot of the boys, especially the ones that come from troubled backgrounds, really need that. They really need a guy to look up to, and it's very different than just with a woman. So I'm really grateful that we can work as a team.
Is it usually after-school programs, or do you just run summer programs? What are those formats like for those that are maybe watching and interested in maybe learning more about the children's program and art therapy? Maybe not even just children, the adults as well. How do the programs run? How often and so forth?
Well, we have weekly after-school classes. We do have summer camps, and those are all day. They start as early as 8:30 a.m. and end at 6. So yeah, we love doing that. We do that July and August. We may be probably this is our next year. No, next year's our 10th year doing summer camps, and we're probably going to be moving away from that and moving more into workshops. Okay. And so our workshops are usually anywhere from 3 to 5 hours on a Saturday or Sunday, and then they're custom made workshops to a group, or sometimes we do offer things that are more like traditional arts or just strictly healing arts.
Wow, that's fantastic. And that's for children and adults? You have different programs for both, or where do you focus your adult programs?
Our adult programs focus on workshops. Okay. So either traditional, or sometimes people come and have painting parties. Oh, that's nice. And then the healing, and we do private classes also, portfolio building for teenagers that are going into school, into college, applying to art school. And I'm so happy that all my teens this year have gotten accepted to their schools of choice. So yeah, that's incredible. So we work pretty hard with them for that. And then our adult workshops are usually, I kind of see what the group dynamic is and what the needs are, and then we'll form it around that.
That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. How do you promote your work? We spend a lot of time with different types of businesses and different types of business owners, interviewing people. And because I'm a creative myself, I love interviewing creative thinkers, the creative entrepreneurs, we call them. And you happen to be one, obviously. How do you take something like art, sometimes not even tangible? Yes, the paintings are tangible. Yes, the products are tangible, but there's an emotion that's evoked by a particular painting. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's not easy to touch and feel when you're in the process, especially if you're being asked to create something that's custom, mm-hmm. right? How do you go out there in the world as a creative and sell your art? What are some of the challenges, and what has worked for you?
That's a very interesting question, because I've just been finding out sort of where things are, or it actually has been getting confirmed. Before 2007, it was very easy to sell work. And this is even before Facebook. I do sell quite a bit through Facebook. But back then, I would just send an email, and I could sell like a $1,000, $5,000 painting without a problem. We'd go on vacation. I was a single mom for a while, and my son and I would, say, okay, this is spring break. I'm going to sell like a $3,000, $5,000 painting and go, I don't know, Puerto Rico, Chile, somewhere. Right. Everything changed in 2007. It was incredible, the difference. And so then I spent some time, actually up until recently, up until about maybe 4 months ago, making a lot smaller works and watercolors and trying to make the art more affordable to people. But I lost 4 galleries that represented me, and Sergio was represented by 2 different galleries, so as a total we lost 6 galleries representation. And whereas we would celebrate $5,000 painting sales, now we were celebrating, a $50 painting sale. Right. It's a huge change.
Yes, dramatic change.
Mm-hmm. And so what we have found is that I think it's probably because of the internet and the market. And I have found that it's not just our experience, but I'm talking and seeing a lot of painters and visual artists go through this. And so what's happened now is there's been a lot of art fairs that are coming through. And so we started doing that probably 2 years ago. We just started locally at some farmers markets. And we had to get over the stump of, we used to be galleries, and now we're out in the street selling our work. But we started really liking to communicate with people and have, like what you're saying, like a tangible thing, and where you can talk to people and they can meet the artists, and it's not just hanging at a gallery galleries are great too, don't get me wrong, but when you're at a gallery, the artist is not necessarily there. So there is that more, human connection when you go out on the street. And this year, for the first time, we're actually going up to Manhattan, and we're going to do some street peddling.
That's awesome. I think it's about being able to always think outside the box,
Yes.
or being open to change. I think that's what keeps us from growing as individuals, not just businesses, but as individuals. You get used to a certain rhythm, you get used to a certain way of doing things. It's worked, and then something happens externally or even internally. Something just switches off. We're no longer connected to that particular either industry of work, or maybe just the economy's change, family situations, move our emotions elsewhere, and to be able to flow, to be able to really be, I wouldn't say open to change, because change is hard for everyone, and sometimes change is not welcomed, but how do you maneuver, and how do you work with all the assets that you have? It's really challenging as a business owner, but as an individual, especially if your passion is something that is not as tangible, that you can just go out and sell pencils or sell products. I mean, obviously everybody is talented if they can sell anything, but it really is important to really focus on how do you decide to move in directions that would serve your path right now.
Right.
Is that something, as you're, seeing people come through, like people are going through tough times, and you're talking about healing, you're talking about using art as a way to shift and move when people get stuck? Do you find the fear in people, and how does art help them move from that place of being stuck?
Yeah, absolutely. Art does help, because it's a way of releasing from your subconscious and even your unconscious. You're not so stuck in your head, to really go in there. And when I do the healing workshops, I do a lot of leading into thinking and meditation. And one thing that I wanted to address from what you mentioned is in being flexible and open to change. And so I think it's really important to always follow your excitement for your passion. I think that's so important. I remember when I was 15 and I wanted to be a pilot, And then I went skydiving, and I actually flew a plane, and then that just kind of went away. But I was really very troubled by that, because I thought I had that dream for such a long time. I even applied to the Air Force, changed my mind at the last minute. And so letting go of that, but that wasn't my excitement anymore. That wasn't my passion. It was for a short period of time, but I fought that, and actually signing up to the Air Force was like, that was one of my little tantrums. Like, no, this is what I wanted to be, and I can still do art, but I had so many things pulling, so I had to really question. So I think when changes come, whether it be like for us with the market, or something else comes up in your life, they're like doors that we're opening into like a new house, and you go in, and then another door gets opened, and another one, and there's no reason why you can't go, and you can't change, and you can't follow whatever's exciting to you. And I think that's what makes this path so exciting and so wonderful, that you're always being willing to go with wherever your heart leads.
What do you believe or would want your art to do for the world?
That, I think, would be wonderful, to help people follow their excitement and realize their dreams, just to be inspired. And that can happen in so many ways, just from sitting in front of a painting and meditating, or actually having something that, that you remember when looking at it. I have a friend, or actually he was a roommate for a while. When he got married, he commissioned a painting from me. And I made a large painting, and I sent it to him. He didn't actually, I don't remember him asking me to, what I would paint. And he's told me, he's been married now for, I don't know, maybe 13 years. And he says that until now, every time that they argue, they go and they sit and stand in front of that painting and they remember their love. So that's, that's wonderful. I can't ask for more than that.
What have been some of the most powerful things that your workshop participants or other artists that you've had a chance to inspire and you've had a chance to teach? What are some of the amazing aha moments for them or transformations that you can share with us through art and through art therapy?
Yeah, well, just healing, healing from different personal wounds that people have. We do a little bit of writing along with the painting, and so all these things come forth, so it's a lot of sitting down, looking at what you've created, thinking about it, thinking about symbolism and what it means to you, and it opens up your inner world that's maybe been, closed off. And so whether it's something that you want to do professionally and you didn't realize it, or maybe a relationship with a parent, and I can share a short story that happened with one of my students that through one of these art therapy type of projects, he had a really difficult relationship with his dad. And he painted about that. And I don't even think he wrote about it. I think he painted about it and he talked to me about it. And a few months later, he told me that he showed his dad the painting and actually gifted it to him for Father's Day. And it started a dialogue. And he said he hadn't been able to start that dialogue with his dad until he actually physically painted what he did. And then that, so just kind of, it's something very, I guess because it's visual, it's also more physical than something intangible that just, in your head or in your heart.
And for the people that you really draw for, paint for, write for, what does that community look like for you? Is it the general public at large, or do you have what we call a target, a demographic of people that you wish to serve or that you're passionate, to serve? Because obviously anybody can be attracted to the work that you do, and you'll get commission work from anyone. But do you have intention around who you are when you're painting? Who you're serving?
Not at all. Actually, I believe that painting should be strictly for you. That I do have an awareness that there's some of my art that appeals to artists. That's hard to sell, but it's usually my best art. And then there's the art that is more attracted to the general public. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other. I am attracted to one more than the other, but for me it's just a joy to have any of my art in somebody's home, that is, and I don't have a demographic. There's a natural demographic that happens, but not one that I'm searching for. So I see that there's more of these or that are buying my art, but it's not because I'm targeting them in any conscious type of way. It just happens.
Wow. So what are you doing when you are not painting or when you're not in your studio? What are some of the things that motivate you to keep going? How do you stay connected beyond your art to, everyday life, all the activities around you? What else do you do besides paint and inspire?
I do a lot of reading. I am connected to a couple of groups online that are about healing. Mainly for women, and that really helps to remind me of what a need there is out there, for art and healing. And then of course I'm connected to a lot of artists too, and so seeing their work is inspiring, and that too reminds me how it's important for me to be working, and I paint daily.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's a ritual. Yeah.
It is a ritual, yes, it is.
So do you have any tips for aspiring painters and artists, or those that are totally in the fold and doing it and have their rituals? Do you have any tips for them to keep them motivated and inspired to pursue their passion and their excitement?
Mm-hmm. I think that the biggest tip is that, just to follow your heart. What you want to do at any given time is what you should be doing. It's hard to think that way because it's not what's been ingrained. Society says you have to get up, you have, 9 a.m. you have to be at a job, 5 p.m. you can have fun, So it's definitely not living within conventional rules or by any means, just absolutely doing what you want to do, what you love to do. It takes time sometimes to get there for some people. Other people can do it from one day to the next. So not comparing yourself to anybody, I think is really important. You know, not comparing your art to anybody, not comparing your progress to anybody. You just do the best that you can do at any given time, at all given times. And also, of course, the practice. You know, so if you're a painter or a musician, I see some guitars back there. So it's important to be practicing, to give and allow yourself that time daily to do what you love to do.
When you think about your success, because success is defined in so many different ways, when you think of success and when you think of happiness and when you think of really being at peace inside your heart with your work, with your family, what comes to mind for you? What types of things really, when I say those words, come to your senses, that appeals to your emotions?
I think just inner peace and love and being surrounded by people who also can give the same to you, because we all need that, you know. So it's important not to think that that we're out there just to give. We also need to take in. And yeah, that's success. It's just loving what you want to be doing and being surrounded by people that you love and that you're giving love back to.
How do people find your work? How do they find you? Where do they go? I mean, I know that now you have, you know, they may not be able to find you in as many galleries, but I know you have upcoming projects and the next evolution. Can we talk about a little bit of the next evolution? What's the goal for your artwork in the studio?
Yes, we have actually next month in May, I was just signed on, I signed a contract in February with an agent for licensing my art.
That's great. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So the way that it works is, and we'll find out next month and thereafter, so some of the drawings, like even one of the drawings that you own, the one that you showed me when you walked in, so they will be at this big conference, I think it would be called. It's my first time doing this, and it's all new to me. But it's called Surtex. It's in New York, and it's where manufacturers go. And so, for example, this pretty teacup has this pretty design here. An artist made that, and then that needs to be licensed so that different manufacturers can use it. And so that would be great if we get picked up by manufacturers and my art. And see, that's another step that I took because many years ago, had you asked me, oh, your art can be on a teacup, I would have said, oh, no. Now I'm like, yes, please.
Right.
You know? So that's a project that's coming up. And as I mentioned, we're going to be traveling to New York for a couple of art fairs. And then in 2012, we did a Kickstarter project where we raised $6,000, and we went to Chile, and we did a project with the American Indians there, the Mapuche.
Right, that's right.
Yes, and I received, about a week ago, I received an email inviting us back to do another project, and so we're looking into that.
Great. Can you talk a little bit more about that project and what it entailed? What were you there to do?
Sure, that started from a big painting, huge, it's probably like the size of this wall here, that I made in 2004, I believe it was, and it's called Return to the Seed. And it represented all the natives from the Americas. And I wanted it to be sort of, to signify how we as a people should, all over the world, should get back to the essence of life. And so that's the return to the seed.
That's beautiful, really beautiful.
Thank you. And so in working with that, I thought, well, why not start and look at the spirituality of different indigenous traditions? And we started with my native Chile, and it was wonderful. It was a great experience. I believe that we did some of the best work that we've done. And we did a lot of collaborations through there. And we were planning on going somewhere this year, but it's not, it just hasn't, you know, I haven't wanted to push it for the same reasons that we were talking about. And now with this invitation coming through, now I'm thinking, well, maybe we should, you know, continue in in this, just kind of letting that universe open up the doors that need to be opened. But that's the main reason that we wanted. I mean, we're both very interested in spirituality from indigenous traditions and what's called the cosmology of their belief systems. But it's, you know, to actually talk to the people and work with the children that are in these communities, you know, that's a whole other really fun project that we could go to. So,
and it could expand beyond your native home of
yes,
Chile, right?
Yes.
You're thinking about many other indigenous groups.
Yes. Well, we thought obviously about the U.S. and then Sergio's from Mexico, so we thought about Mexico. Bolivia has so much to share and to offer. Brazil, you know, just never ending. So that's a project that is definitely in our vision.
The dream is big. It's humongous.
Yes, lots of dreams. So we'll see.
And if it can happen once, it can happen again. So it's not about the impossibilities of life. It's really being able to open your mind, you know,
yes.
to maybe have a design teacup or whatever the equivalent of that is. But being able to say, you know, if I've tried something and I like it, but there's a door that's opening here and it keeps opening, it keeps telling me to walk through. Sometimes we have to pause and pay attention to those, what I call signs.
Yes, not get stuck in what we were planning to do.
Exactly.
But just, you know, be gracious into that one.
What do you think? What do you think the world of artists, the community of artists, what do you think about collaborations? Is it happening enough? Is it not happening enough? What's your personal take on collaborations and working together?
As far as collaborations for exhibits or
for all of it, I mean, really, because a lot of people that I know, the artist community is strong, but at the same time, you're still an independent artist and you're doing your own thing. How do you feel about being able to get together and collaborate on starting a festival, just the artists themselves, and being able to also, like you and your husband, do work together, actually paint together? Do you see that happening, you know, often, or is that something that you would like to see more of?
I would like to see more of that. In the 90s, there was a lot of collaboration between artists, you know, and I'd see that that's, you know, it's not happening as it used to be. On the other hand, I see a lot of it online. You know, there are a lot of people that are collaborating in the arts online. It's different though, you know, because that becomes, it's wonderful too, because it's a much more soulful type of thing that's happening online. Not that live wasn't soulful, but it's because you're online, that's all you can focus on. It's, you know, what people are sharing, their thoughts and their personal growth. But it's definitely needed, and it was wonderful in the 90s because we were doing a lot of sharing and we were putting together great exhibits, and that's not happening anymore. So, and I'm not sure how we can make it happen again. It has to be different people willing to share space, to understand that there's enough for everybody. You know, there's a lot of competition in our society and a lot of thinking that, oh, everything to ourselves. But there's this huge, huge world and universe, and there's enough for everybody.
And we all have our own appeal, and we all have people who are attracted to whatever it is that we uniquely offer. So yes. I would definitely agree on that.
Yes.
Well, can you tell us where people can find you? Like, are you on Facebook? What are they looking for when they search Google?
They can search by my name, Claudia Olivos, and also our studio is Olivos Art Studio. And so my website is claudiaolivos.com, and it's olivosartstudio.com, and then on YouTube it's Olivos Art Studio. We have been trying to do the branding thing so that we can be easily found on all those platforms, including Google Plus now. Right.
Well, like you said, you keep expanding and learning and growing, yes. And so I'm delighted to continue to learn and grow with you as your art takes off. I'll be following you myself, as I have been for so many years. And I own several pieces of your stuff, so I'll be continuing to buy stuff because I just love your work so much. Well, thank you for being on the show today. I really thank you. Appreciate you taking the time, and to also, you know, highlight the fact that art is, it's very individual, but it's not just for you. It's to share, it's to collaborate, it's to really heal the world. So I love the fact that we touched a lot on that today. You know, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you everyone for joining us again on Tea with Molly, and we will see you next time.